Tiana sat in front of her bedroom mirror, running her hands through the soft, coiled strands of her natural afro. At 13, she'd grown to love her hair. Her parents had always encouraged her to embrace her natural beauty, to take pride in the curls that crowned her head. They'd told her she looked like a queen, strong, confident, and uniquely herself. But when Tiana walked into school that Monday morning, her afro puffed out with pride, it wasn't long before she felt anything but confident. Her teacher, Miss Perkins, stopped her just as she was heading into homeroom. Tiana's stomach dropped when Miss Perkins gave her a quick once-over, her face tightening into a disapproving frown. "Tiana, I need to speak with you," Miss Perkins said, her voice strained. Tiana followed Miss Perkins to the side, her heart pounding in her chest. The hallway buzzed with the sound of students rushing to class, but all Tiana could focus on was the heavy pit forming in her stomach. "Tiana," Miss Perkins began, "I'm afraid your hair violates the school's dress code." "My hair?" Tiana asked, confused. "What's wrong with my hair?" Miss Perkins pursed her lips. "The school policy states that hairstyles must be neat and not distracting to the learning environment. Unfortunately, your afro is considered a distraction." Tiana felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "But this is my natural hair." Miss Perkins sighed. "I understand, but rules are rules. You'll need to either tie it down or straighten it." Tiana stood there, stunned. Her hair was a part of her. It wasn't just a style she could change at will, it was her identity. She couldn't believe she was being asked to hide it, as though it were something to be ashamed of. When she got home that afternoon, her parents, Marcus and Aisha, immediately knew something was wrong. Tiana threw her backpack onto the floor and sat at the kitchen table, silent and fuming. "What's the matter, sweetheart?" her mom asked, sitting next to her. Tiana told them everything, the way Miss Perkins had pulled her aside, the comments about her hair, the school's so-called dress code. Her parents' faces darkened with anger as they listened. "They said what?" Marcus asked, his voice low and sharp. "They said my hair's a distraction," Tiana muttered, crossing her arms. "Like I'm not supposed to wear it like this." Aisha exchanged a glance with her husband, both of them simmering with frustration. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "They can't dictate how our daughter wears her natural hair." Marcus nodded. "This is discrimination, plain and simple." That evening, Tiana's parents sat down at their computer, determined to fight back. They found a lawyer who specialized in civil rights cases, and by the next week, they were preparing to sue the school for racial discrimination. The lawsuit sparked a whirlwind of media attention. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon Tiana's face and her afro was on every television screen in town. The case became a symbol of the fight for black children's right to embrace their natural beauty without being penalized. But as the lawsuit gained momentum, the school district dug in its heels. They defended their dress code, claiming it was about maintaining a professional learning environment, not targeting any specific race or hairstyle. Then came the day that would change everything. The trial had barely begun when the school's lawyers made a startling revelation. During the process of gathering evidence for the case, they discovered something shocking in the school's old enrollment records. Tiana's family wasn't just suing the school for discrimination. They were connected to it in a way no one had anticipated. Years ago, before the school had become the mostly white institution it was today, it had been founded by none other than Marcus's own great-grandfather. As the school's attorneys laid out this information in court, the room fell silent. Aisha turned to her husband, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Wait, what?" Marcus stammered, his brow furrowed in confusion. "That can't be right." The school's lawyer pulled out old records, birth certificates, and photos of Marcus's great-grandfather standing proudly in front of the very school they were now fighting. It was undeniable. Marcus's ancestors had been instrumental in the creation of the institution, at a time when it was a beacon of education for black students in the area, before it had shifted over the decades. The revelation hit like a ton of bricks. Tiana's family sat in stunned silence as the pieces began to fall into place. The school that had tried to force their daughter to hide her natural hair was, in fact, a school that had once celebrated the very community they were now alienating. After the bombshell revelation, Tiana's parents, along with their lawyer, requested a recess to process the information. Back at home, they sat around the dining room table, the weight of history pressing down on them. "I had no idea," Marcus said, shaking his head. "My family's connection to that school, it's unreal." Aisha leaned forward, her face set in determination. "It doesn't change what they're doing to our daughter. If anything, it makes it worse. This school was built on the backs of our people, and now they're discriminating against our own child." Marcus nodded slowly. "We need to keep fighting, not just for Tiana, but for everyone who's ever been told they can't be themselves." The next day, they returned to court with renewed energy. The media attention around the case had only grown, and now the story had taken on a new layer, one that highlighted not just the discrimination Tiana faced, but the irony of her family's deep ties to the school's history. In the end, the case was settled in favor of Tiana's family. The school was forced to change its dress code, allowing students to wear their natural hair without restriction. The ruling was celebrated as a victory for racial equality and cultural pride. But for Tiana and her parents, it was about more than just winning the lawsuit. It was about reclaiming a piece of their history and standing up for what was right. They had fought not just for Tiana's right to wear her afro, but for the right of every black student to embrace who they were without fear of being singled out or punished. As they left the courthouse that day, Tiana walked with her head held high, her afro free and proud in the breeze. Reporters flocked around them, microphones outstretched, but Tiana didn't mind the attention. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen for who she was. "Are you happy with the outcome?" one reporter asked as she held the microphone toward Tiana. Tiana looked up at her parents, who smiled back at her with pride. Then she turned to the reporter, her voice strong and clear. "Yeah, I am. I'm happy I get to be me." Her parents smiled as they walked down the courthouse steps together. The fight had been long and hard, but in the end, it had been worth it. They had won not just for their daughter, but for the countless children who would come after her, children who would now have the right to love and embrace their natural selves. And as they headed home that evening, Tiana's afro bouncing proudly with each step, she felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. It wasn't just her hair that made her feel this way. It was knowing that she had the right to be herself, no matter what anyone said. And for the first time, the school that had tried to silence her voice and stifle her pride would now be a place where she, and others like her, could truly be free. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I put a lot of love and care into telling these important stories, and your support means the world to me. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Have a blessed day.